So we're back.
Matt, have you ever been a background actor on anything?
That's a good question. I think that's kind of, well, I think it's kind of how we met. I think that first, I think that would qualify as a background piece, wouldn't it?
That's true.
You know, we met
That's
on the
true.
PBS shooting, and we were, you know, wearing the pantalones and the colonial outfits.
The colonial outfits. I felt very, very regal. Well, what was your opinion of even doing background work?
Yeah, well, that's a good one. You know, as new as I am to this, it was a good experience, and I think what made it a good experience was, as always on set, is working with, you know, the talent in this area. So great producers, great, you know, directors, fun actors that come from all different backgrounds and all different, you know, miles away sometimes in some cases. I think there were some people on that shoot who drove all the way from Chicago.
Chicago?
So, I believe so. There was a few that I met that were not from the DMV, but came there for that specifically. So, you know, it was a great experience for me. You know, anytime you can be on camera and be on set is a good experience in the DMV or in acting in general, right? I mean, you're learning something new every time.
Yeah, I think it was Philip Seymour Hoffman who said if you have a chance to ever, you know, practice your craft, do it.
I'll take your word for that he said that.
Maybe I read it somewhere. I don't know. Maybe I made it up.
Sounds like something you'd say.
It was something I think he said. Maybe. Who knows? I don't know where I read it. Maybe it was on a bubblegum wrapper.
I didn't know you read.
It was a bathroom. I can read.
That's not my experience with your lines.
Comic books.
So, hey, you know, good thing is on that background one, we didn't have any. So
I don't even know how to respond to that. But that's okay, because we're always looking for stuff to cut out, right?
That's right.
Well, I think what we're going to try to do today is maybe just help anybody in the DMV or who wants to come to the DMV.
Right.
Washington, D.C. is right up the road, so there are chances for, you know, background actors all over the place. And
there are.
I think we even know some that do it full time. That's all they do is travel the country, and they're background actors.
Yeah, and I think we're going to have some of our guests on that can speak at length about their opinions about background acting in the DMV. You know, that's a hot button topic for some areas with, you know, Atlanta and LA and New York, where you might get a very different opinion about doing background work. But in this area, the DMV, it's worthy endeavor.
Well, luckily, what would you say if today we had the chance to actually talk with a background actor who's worked in the DMV?
I'd say bring him on board.
Oh, well, he's already here. We have Mr. EARL Hamill. Look at this. Hey, hold on.
Nice.
So, I don't know how to turn that off. It just ends. We met similarly to how you and I met. We met on the set of Rustin, right? And for those unfamiliar, Rustin is on Netflix, and it's a film starring Coleman Domingo, Chris Rock, CCH Pounder, Divine, a lot of really well-known actors. So I was really happy to be a part of it. But Earl,
greetings.
What's going on, buddy?
Hey, welcome.
Great to have you.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
So we've been talking a little bit about the idea that background acting may, and we were talking off mic here a little bit about the idea that background acting is kind of a dirty word in some circles, and maybe some people are not into doing background acting. You got into it in an unusual way.
Yes.
So are you able to kind of elaborate on exactly what happened? Because this is a fun story. I like this.
My wife is actually responsible for that. She called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, would you be interested in appearing in a movie? There's a production company doing some work in D.C. and they're looking for talent for background, for atmosphere, as I think they referred to it then." And I had never done anything like that, but I said, "Sure, why not?" So she signed me up, and they gave me a call a few weeks later, and wound up coming down and getting fitted and starting the process.
That's a great story.
How did she sell that to you?
Yeah.
I have to ask, because it looks like she found it in a magazine and said, "Hey, you need to do this," and you're, you know, I don't know what movie this is or where I'm going, but
she didn't give me a lot of background. She said, "This is going to be shot in D.C. and, might be a new experience. What do you think? Would you like to give it a shot? I thought, okay, I've never done anything like that. Sure, why not?
Was that something that you'd always wanted to do?
No, I don't think I'd ever really even thought about it.
And that was a union job. That was a SAG
I
production.
honestly, in retrospect, I didn't know how good we had it. That was back in 2021, and we were very well cared for at all levels. They made sure we were comfortable, warm, dry, and very well fed.
That's pretty cool. Out of the box, first gig, a SAG union job.
Yeah, I think you had, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you had some, I think it might have been cut out of the film. We were talking about this earlier, but Coleman Domingo would come out. Were you a park ranger on that day? I know you played a DC police officer in some scenes and then a park ranger in others, but talk to me a little about how Coleman Domingo kept coming out to you. And it's just a funny story. He kept saying different lines just because they couldn't hear him. Or
yeah, that was on the subsequent shoot late in the production. They came back and shot for another 6 days, 5 or 6 days in DC during a heat wave. It was really warm. But he was really friendly with all the non-talent, such as myself. They had me cast as a DC police officer, and they had another gentleman as a park ranger. And in this scene, he was walking down the steps of the Lincoln Memorial towards the reflecting pool, just sort of having a reflective moment, so to speak. And he gets down to, I'm not sure where the camera actually cuts out or how far they intended to follow him, but he would extend far beyond where he was supposed to stop and come out to where myself and this other gentleman were and shake hands with us and sort of perform as if he was coming out to greet us specifically. And he would always ask something different every time we did a take. So he'd say, hey, can you guys break a 20? Or, hey, what do you think about that sandwich we had yesterday? Would you get the ham or the pastrami? And he was a good guy.
yeah, I remember him being really, really friendly because you and I worked, I think, two days in DC together.
2 days initially, 2 days, and then another, 2 or 3 up in Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. I feel like it was at least 2 or 3. Yeah, I can't remember. In Pittsburgh.
I don't know if we actually spoke to each other much then, other than just sort of casual. I don't recall us having a real discussion about much of anything.
Well, I'll tell you what I remember. You tell me what you remember.
Okay.
I don't remember seeing you until the end. So just to back up a little bit, I was also background on Rustin, which we established when I mentioned that that's how we'd met. But knowing how it is to be a background actor, I'm asking you specifically because I think I had done 1 or 2 other background things at that point, and this was your first. So to have this experience be your first background experience is pretty awesome, I'd say, because of the spread. When you have craft services there was like a huge tent with craft services. And I remember one day we were walking out and they were packing up. I said, do you mind if I take this granola bar? And they were like, put some stuff in your pocket. We don't want to take the rest of it back. And they had a whole spread of stuff. So I'm like stuffing my pockets.
Nice.
I think I was in a suit that day. But I remember you were a park ranger.
Yes, initially that's what they had me cast as. And as you say, there were a lot of old salts there who had done this for a while, and they just couldn't get over craft services. They said, this is the best we've ever had. This is fantastic.
It was great.
They did take very good care of us.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I've seen a lot of background talent get easily overwhelmed or awestruck to the point where, and maybe we can get into this, but you're new to background, not you specifically, but in general, if you're new to background and you're struck by the sets, right? So my very first background experience, I was with someone who had never done it before, and they flat out told us, you don't take pictures on set. And this particular person was walking all over the set, sneaking their phone out and taking pictures.
Wow.
At the risk of basically being kicked off the project.
Sure.
For those that are listening, that is not a good idea.
Yeah. Always ask.
Always ask.
Assume you can't.
Assume you can, absolutely.
Right.
And I think they told us even on the first thing I did, they said, listen, when this thing comes out, if you happen to take any pictures, the best time to take pictures is between this time and this time. But the message was don't take pictures, but if you're going to, take them between this time and don't release them until this thing is done. But we had an experience with another actor on that set and pictures. Are you able to?
I don't know. Can we name check that person, or should we let them remain relatively anonymous?
I'd say keep it anonymous.
I think there are ways to,
Ways around that.
Yeah.
There was an actor on that set, a very well known, very very famous actor, who was I guess he wound up catching somebody just blatantly photographing him without any sort of. They weren't even trying to hide it.
Wow.
And he had a bit of a meltdown. And I think they shut down production for an hour or so and collected everyone's phones or made everybody pile their stuff into a box. So if you don't follow those directions, they're going to clamp down and make it. I know I have a friend who worked on one of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and that was part of when you got to the set, you had to turn in everything on you. They patted you down and wanded you. Everything in your pockets went into a locked box, and you didn't get it back to the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think it would be common sense and respect, but, as you said, some people are going to get starstruck and think it's okay, and you have to assume it's not. So,
yeah, I get the excitement, but I don't suggest risking it.
That same actor also was part of the core of, I believe, the instruction we were not to look at the talent or make eye contact with the primaries in the production. That was a new thing to me. I thought that was something they only did with the Royals back in the.
I mean, I've heard of that happening. That's probably a very bespoke experience for that particular set.
Well, you've gone on since then. That first experience sounds like it was pretty good. But you have gone on and you've been background on other projects. And this is in the D.C. metro area.
Yes.
So we could get into the permits and things like that, but we hope to have somebody who can kind of speak to that a little bit later. But sporadically, they shoot in D.C. and you were on another project with another well-known actor. If you're able to tell us a little about that.
Yeah, that was a pilot. I'm not sure if it's going to get picked up. I haven't seen it come out yet, but it may have been delayed. A lot of the stuff I did was sort of immediately post-COVID, so there was a lot of delays in putting things together. But it's always interesting to work in this area and be in and around the mall, famous buildings, the Capitol itself. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah. That it sounded like you had a really good experience on that second set too.
Yes, let's just say it was a famous actor who may or may not have been in one of the Godfather movies. Wound up really liking some of the actions of the other background that I was just fortunate enough to be standing next to, and he required a camera angle and setup change to focus on the section of crowd we were in.
That's pretty cool.
So that was just luck of the draw, and he liked what the person standing next to me was doing.
How recent was that experience?
That was 2 years ago.
Okay. And what about lately?
I haven't done anything recently. Things have been pretty busy.
Yes, you have. You can talk about it.
What were you thinking of specifically?
I was thinking, and I think we can mention it because the premiere is coming up, but Fair Rain.
Oh, yes. Yes, indeed. Okay, we can talk about that now. Yeah, that's another one that I have Dean to thank for that. He sort of gatewayed me into that and let me know that was happening. Very impressed by the production values. And again, every time I do this, it's an incredible learning experience. something I know little or nothing about. So every time I go out, there is a wealth of information to be gleaned. And the more you can pay attention, the broader, especially in this area, I think particularly in the DMV area, there's just a lot of exposure and a lot of crossroads.
Well, shout out to, was it JCL Productions for that
JCL
one?
Productions, Reel to Reel, they're fantastic.
Yeah. In fact, I think we're going to have I think we're going to have them on at one point.
Yeah.
Or at least, the offer is out there.
Yeah.
To come and interview.
I've talked with them about it, and they seem like they're into it. I think it would be good for the audience to learn from them. That project in particular was really special because it was independent actors. It wasn't a big budget SAG project. It was the highest quality thing that you could do with the least amount of things. Does that make sense? You do what you can do with the least that you have.
I was blown away by the professionalism and the knowledge, their intimate knowledge of the craft.
And I've got to tell this story real quick that you may or may not remember. But there's a thing when you're an extra. A lot of times you're in extras holding until you're ready to film. And you guys know this. But for some of our listeners that might want to get into it, that's what happens. You go in, you get in wardrobe, and you basically have a backpack or your phone or a computer or book to read until they say, okay, we need you. So I remember looking over offset at one point, and Earl he's in this. You're playing an NG soldier, and you'd had your mask off,
full
but
riot
everything
gear.
else, it was like riot gear, and he's spackling the wall.
And there was
He's very handy, but he saw holes in the wall from, I guess, where they had hung pictures before, and different projects would come through, and they would hang stuff up in different places, but there were all these holes in the wall that they hadn't spackled. So I look over, and he's got a spackle, and he's going through room to room, set to set, spackling all of these.
You just came across some spackle?
Well, I had my car with me, and I'd been working on another project, and the director was lamenting the fact that they really needed to paint the premises, and they hadn't got around to it yet. Oh, we'll have to do this at some point. I don't know when we're going to have time. So I thought, well, I have time, so I can at least get it rolling a little further.
That's a good story.
Well, I won't name check this person either, but there's somebody that you know. It was very ironic. You knew somebody from a long time ago that we saw on the set of Rustin.
Yeah. When we were up in it's Pittsburgh, excuse me. We were masking in between takes, so nobody's face was really that visible. But we were standing on a set of bleachers that was to represent the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. And on the very last hour of the last day we were up there, I can hear somebody talking behind me, and I recognize the voice. I thought, well, that's kind of odd. I don't think I know anybody here. And come to find out, it's a guy that I grew up with. Went to high school. Haven't seen him since like a few years after high school.
That's wild.
And he lives out of state. He lives down in Georgia now, and we grew up in upstate New York. And here we are in Pittsburgh, and he's literally been standing at my elbow for 2 or 3 days, and I had no idea.
Wow. But he does this like full time. Right?
This is his, background is his full-time gig. Now he's had some featured stuff as well. It's not like that's all he does, but no job too small. He's very
So he's carved out a niche in just background.
Very active. He's done some featured parts as well, and he's been in a lot of some really big name productions and worked with a lot of heavy talent. Very close with a lot of heavy talent, but he's very content to take whatever part he can get. He likes a broad range of experience, and he's skilled.
Yeah, I think there was another story you told me about how he was on another set. But I mean, what's interesting is you meet all of these background actors, and we'll get into where you can find out about background acting in this area and how to if you're brand new to it, we'll start there. What websites to go to maybe, and how you get started in that, what you need for that.
Dean has been a real boon in that respect to my interest in this. He seems to have all the answers. He's my go-to for that sort of thing.
We'll cut that out.
I got you.
I don't
No,
know about
I
that.
mean, Earl, I was going to ask you, like, so what is your process for finding roles? What's your go-to method?
Well, I made my wife my agent, but she hasn't really been producing for me for the past couple of months. So
Takes
I may
20%
have
off
to.
the top.
Yeah, I know she wants way too much for commission. So I may have to send her down the road. I don't know. I may have to find another source. No, she does actually look out for material for me, and I'll word of mouth counts for a lot. That's one of the one of the perks of doing background work is you're going to meet a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds. So they're often those people that you talk to are a fantastic source for the next project.
Great.
Yeah, and I think if I'm remembering correctly, the PBS thing we did, I learned about that on a Facebook post. It was a Facebook group called Act Up DMV.
I think that's right.
So there, if you look for those sorts of things on social media, you can find if you're brand new. And I see a lot of brand new actors come to this area, and they have semi-professional photos, maybe some. I would suggest we'll do a whole other thing on headshots, but they'll post a photo of themselves to say, "This is who I am. This is what I look like. I'm trying to get into acting. What do I need to do?" kind of thing. And by the way, this podcast is also for you.
Right.
But Act Up DMV is one of those groups. There are several groups on social media.
That's how I got started. When I decided to even try this, I didn't know where to begin. I just created a profile on Backstage.com because that's all I knew. And I was lucky enough to stumble into an internal kind of training video kind of shoot in the D.C. area. And on that set, I met someone who was doing background and had been doing this for a while in the area, and they said, "You need to get on this site and this site and this Facebook site and this other one," and followed, and that kind of broke open for me. So again, it's a word of mouth. It's this small DMV area community, probably the same experiences you have had. It's invaluable, and we take care of each other around here.
Yeah, we do. Now, do you have an IMDb?
I do not.
Okay, so there's some people that don't believe that being a background actor is going to help their career. They want the IMDb credit. There's all sorts of things to get into there and to go into the weeds on that. But what I found, and you tell me if this is true for you, is there are all sorts of projects that offer IMDb credit, but they won't pay you. Or maybe there's not IMDb and there's no pay, but you'll get footage for a reel.
Certainly. Yeah, there's often a good trade-off in that you may not be working for scale, whatever amount you're comfortable making for the day to pay the bills or make it worthwhile for you. But often there's a good trade-off in exposure or experience, or, as you say, building your reel, building your stable, so you've got something to show somebody further down the line.
Right. Yeah. I'm just reminded of another project that I worked on and I was background on. You're also not SAG.
Yes, SAG-AFTRA eligible, but I have not signed the paper on that.
And I haven't either. I'm also SAG eligible, and so we'll have a conversation about that later too, with others on the podcast. But for the purposes of today, I also know that there are some actors that may also look down on non-union.
I've seen it both ways. I've seen ones that they're professionals. They do this, but they have no bones to pick with anyone who's not, and other ones that can't be bothered to give you the time of day if you're not part of the Ring Knocker Club,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I remember one girl that was talking about how she was SAG and she was asking we were standing in line to eat and she was looking around. She was asking everybody if they were SAG, and I guess they got to sit in a different room or something.
No, they usually get to go through a shorter line, and
the funny thing is
sit together, so they get to eat first. Or
that's what I was getting to, is that she was standing right in front of me in the same line. I'm not exactly sure what.
Maybe she just wanted everyone to know that she was
she
SAG,
felt great about being SAG, and
Yes.
and it was just like, good for you. That's great. I'm next up to eat though.
There you go. Everybody's got their thing.
Don't take too long.
So, any parting thoughts or things you want to share?
I would encourage anyone who hasn't tried this to give it a shot. It's a very, as you said before, it is a very welcoming community. It is rather close knit, and it doesn't take long to build a network. And it's a great experience.
Well, we appreciate your time today and coming aboard and telling your story. And
Thank you, man.
Dean, thanks for sponsoring this guest.
Got it. We've been talking about doing this for quite a while now. I think it's just invaluable for anybody who wants to be a background actor to kind of hear from somebody who's done it a few times, their thoughts on it, how it works, how it helps in the networking, and the benefits. Obviously there are things about it that people don't like. A lot of hurry up and wait.
Yeah, there will be some of that. So anybody who's served time in the military understands that that's just part of the plan. But there's often going to be nothing flows smoothly. There's always some goblin in the works that comes up. But at the end of the day, it's worth it.
Yeah. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you in fair rain, huh?
Hear, hear.
Well, maybe seeing you in fair rain. There's a mask.
Yeah, there was. Yeah. No.
I know which one.
You know which one to be. Yeah.
Thanks for being on, man.
Yeah, appreciate
We'll
it.
see you
Thank
next
you,
time.
folks.
All right.